I'm very privileged and honored to introduce Dr. Jurker Lessing, who will be our guest lecturer, speaking about BoKlok. And I will say that while I admire all of Jurker's work professionally, I also consider him a great friend. And together, well, first he taught the first class I took called Industrialized Construction back in 2013, when he was a visiting scholar at Stanford University. And together we founded the Industrialized Construction Forum and have organized it ever since. So I think today he will not speak about his role as at Stanford so much, but more about his other role, his main role, which is Director of Innovation at BoKlok. So with that, Jurker, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. I'm super happy to be here as well, or being here virtually at least. I would love to come to Zurich again, but when this pandemic is over, I hope to come physically next time at least. But it's great to have the chance to talk a little about BoKlok, the company I work for in this class. Just a couple of words, as Daniel said too. I work at BoKlok since 5 years. BoKlok is a joint venture between Skanska, the construction company, and IKEA, the furniture giant. But I also have a role still at Stanford as an adjunct professor. So I teach a similar class still also as this one over there, starting on Monday, actually, in a week from now. I have been working with industrialized construction the last almost 20 years. Background, civil engineering, worked as a structural engineer, logistics and supply chain consultant, and then moved into the more combining technology and processes in terms of into industrialized construction, and then became more of as an advisor to building companies. But then, as I said, since 5 years working within one of these companies, BoKlok. So BoKlok, not a big surprise maybe to you, but I would say that BoKlok is working with industrialized construction, but maybe with an interesting twist, because we are housing developers mainly. That's what we are, the closest to our hearts. But to be able to do that in a very smart way, we build in an industrialized way. We have a product platform. I will talk more about that, of course. So that is sort of our means to be able to fulfill our customer promise, which is to build affordable homes to the many people. That's what we are here to do. So we buy land, we build our own products, we produce our own products, and we sell them directly to our customers. So controlling the whole value chain, so to say. To do that, we have our own factory, serving mainly the market in Sweden for us. And then we have 3 other factories that we don't own, but we have really close collaboration and partnerships with them. And they supply us with volumetric elements for our other markets, which is Finland, Norway, and the UK. As you can see in the chart, which is a couple of years old, but it's since 2018, we've had a pretty steady state of around 1,200 homes per year built, but we've had a pretty strong growth since 10 years back. We've gone from around 350 homes per year to around 1,200 per year. So it's a pretty strong development we've had in that sense. Yeah, I forgot to say, we have also a very, very strong product focus. So even though we are a project developer, we're not developing unique project in that sense. So the projects we build are always built up with our own very controlled and standardized products. So that's sort of the basics of BoKlok. It started already in 1996 with the founder of IKEA, the gentleman to the right, and the chairman of Skanska. I think it was actually the founder of IKEA, Ingvar, who was upset. He visited a housing fair and he saw only fairly expensive and exclusive homes being displayed and exposed. And he said, okay, so where are the homes for the many people? And there were none. And then he picked up the phone and called the chairman of Skanska and said, hey, we need to do something about this. We need to build good homes, quality homes for the many people with thinner wallets. And that was the start of BoKlok. Actually started with one guy being a little upset. So that's a pretty interesting story, I think. But maybe that's a good driver sometimes as well. So the vision for BoKlok is to build sustainable quality homes at a low price, and low price meaning for a very large customer segment, people with normal income. And how was this done then? Yeah, well, already from the start, there was a realization from the sort of founding team that this need to be a concept, not a project-centered concept, but more of a product-oriented concept. So they went about this as a product development process, you could say. So it started off with a deep investigation about the target segment. Who are we building for and so on. I'll talk more about that. Next step was to do the actual product development based on the intel they had gathered. And the next third step in the sort of evolution was to establish a completely new production system and a supply chain to really execute and realize this. And that's an order that I think is extremely important, and it has been extremely important for our success that we did it in that way. I'll come back to this, I think, a couple of times, because this has been the recipe for us to really optimize our processes. So we're not building for anyone else, meaning that we could optimize our products and we could optimize our production and optimize our supply chain and so on. But I'll come back to that. So starting with the customer, developing the product, and then developing the production system, and not the other way around that we sometimes see. So who are the customers then? Well, we had to dig deep in that, and this was done from the start, but we actually do this on a fairly repetitive basis, especially when we go to a new market, like we have done very recently when we have expanded to the UK. We had to really dig deeper into this, even if we have a pretty good understanding of, in broad sense, who the customers are. We need to on a deeper level understand and tailor, understand the customers and tailor our offerings to them. So identifying the customer segment, what can they afford, what do they prioritize, what do they value in a home, and so on. The list is much longer, of course. But some of the aspects that were found from the very start was that, okay, very basic is that we want to have lots of natural daylight, high functionality, slightly higher ceiling height to make the kind of small apartments more airy, and of course have a high level of natural materials. So based on much more than that, of course, but based on the intel about the customers, the first products were developed, and you can see them on these two pictures. Very nice little apartment house, apartment building with 6 apartments in them, always the same floor plan, but they could be changed in terms of facades and roofs. And then they were always built in small groups of buildings. So 3, 4, 5 of these buildings formed a little housing area together. And also the gardens were included in the product. So the gardens were thought through, and how you could sort of walk in the gardens and also meet your neighbors. So there was a little aspect of social sustainability already then in 1996. To come back to a little model that I think you have covered in the class, we could easily say that we are on the bottom level of this matrix. So working with a product family strategy.
We haven't covered it yet. It's coming.
You haven't.
Still.
Okay, so this is a little teaser that keep an eye out for what you think is on the different levels of this matrix. So we are on the lower level here, meaning that it's a very standardized product. Some room, of course, for project configuration, but not so much. So very much is standardized and defined in advance, and then combining a little for the project, but not so much, especially not if you compare to what we are used to in the housing industry, when it's completely project oriented. So very standardized in that sense. But then you'll learn more about this matrix later on in the class, and then you can relate BoKlok to that. So some pictures showing the products that we have now, because what I showed you a couple of slides ago were the initial products. So the evolution have given us, so to say, a need for bigger buildings. So this is the multi-story, multi-family building we have in, or concept that we have in Sweden. With this one, we can build 2, 3, and 4 story buildings, and they can vary in length and height, obviously, from 2 to 4 stories, but also in the roof shape. I'll show you a couple of slides soon, because this is what we are building currently, but we are actually in a state where we are changing this to the even newer edition of our multifamily product platform. So, but this was a big shift for us, going from these extremely defined 2-story buildings, always exactly the same. So that was an end product, no changes almost at all. With this, it's more of a platform, so we can do, as I said, 2, 3, 4 stories, changing the roofs, changing facades, combining the buildings together, and so on. So that opened up in flexibility for us, and it was extremely important, because then we could build bigger housing areas, and that was actually when we could increase our volumes to build. So the apartments are always the same floor plan and layout, but the buildings can be configured to fit the plot and in height and length, as I said. So that's our recipe. This is so now I've been only talking about our multifamily platform, but as you can see in the front of the picture here are also examples of our single family homes product platform, or product family that we call it. So the whole thing is our product platform. The row houses in the front is one product family, and the apartment houses in the back is one product family, with a lot of commonalities, but 2 different product streams, so to say. They follow the same concept. The row houses can also be configured in terms of roofs, facades, and so on, but always the same floor plans. Some more pictures of the multifamily platform. This is the two configuration when it has 2 stories. This 4 stories. You can see the similarities, of course. Row houses again. And then, as I said, we are just in the middle of a shift from one version to another, building on the same solutions, of course, but we are changing the architecture and the design and some materials and so on. And that's fairly easy to do when we have structured it as a platform. Because then we have a lot of documents, we have a lot of knowledge of it, we have a lot of prerequisites from production and so on. So we know what to change and we know what to stay away from. And then we could hire a really, really good architect to help us increase the design values of our products. So here are some pictures showing how the project from later this year will look. So it's a slightly different look of the buildings, but the content of it, the apartments, are still very, very much the same. So it's actually changing the clothes, you could say, for the buildings. Slightly different balcony solutions. The roofs are different. The facades have some changes. And more from a technical point of view, we have all our components structured in our product platform, using different IT systems and tools to facilitate that, of course. And all the technical solutions are stored, all the different combinations, from the walls and floor elements and how they connect to the roofs. You could think that this is a simple building, only 4 stories. Yes, but if you are to produce them in an industrialized way, and you really, really, really want to know everything about this, there are many combinations, there are many aspects to consider, and also when doing changes, it affects so much. So it's a big job to take care of a product platform, especially the technical aspects of it, of course. But the upsides are extreme because it allows us to really scale and do this in a smart and efficient way. So yes, as I said, all the different combinations. This is a pretty early illustration of how we dealt with that, but this is sort of the basics for our database where we store all the different solutions and combinations for walls, floor elements, and so on and so on. Can skip that. Well, so now we've talked about the customer, and then the product development and the product platform, which is sort of the vehicle to carry all the solutions, and then moving into the production system. As I said, one of the prerequisites with BoKlok is to keep a very low price, and a low price of a product will also need a low cost. Otherwise, you won't be in business for very long. So we wanted to have a very predictable production process with the use of standardization of the solutions, as I have talked about. And the production aspect of that is prefabrication. So controlling production in a factory setting was already from the start 25 years ago a prerequisite, because they realized that, okay, if we are going to build this at scale, we can't do it on construction sites where the prerequisites change all the time. So let's try to find as stable circumstances as possible. And as it says here, no surprises and minimum exceptions. That's what we want from our processes. And of course, cost control. So we design for manufacture We know what solutions, and we have a lot of discussions, of course, but we know how to design to be able to do it in a smart and efficient way. We have a lot of focus on procurement, of course, and then we can reduce waste in all its shapes in a true lean production manner. And that creates sort of a predictable cost situation for us. And as I mentioned in the start also, that we have, since we control the whole value chain, we control the products, we control the logistics, and we control the production. Well, that can be translated into excellent opportunities for optimization. So our factory is structured only to build elements for BoKlok houses, meaning that we can optimize for that. We don't have to be able to change to serve different clients. Our factory serves one client, and that's BoKlok, and it's a very repetitive product that is being built, which has meant high level of optimization of the workflow, super standardized processes. The operations are recurring every day, year out, year in, and that's of course extremely beneficial circumstances for continuous improvements. And the best example, I think, is when we built the first buildings that I showed you. We built them for almost 15 years. And still, after 15 years, we could bring out costs and time from the production of these small houses. Small, simple houses, but still after at least, I think 12 or almost 15 years, we could bring out cost and improve still after so long time. So that's pretty interesting, I think. So now I'll show you a bunch of pictures. Instead of showing a movie, I'll show you many photos to give you a sort of a feeling of how it's like in our factory. So starting with the wall production. Doesn't look very much like a building site here, because this is very industrialized. So this is a machine producing wall panels, almost completely automatic. So it puts together the frame, it puts on the boards, cutting holes, putting in the nails or screws in this as well. And we are actually in the middle of an extension of or restructuring of our factory. So we are increasing the level of automation quite dramatically, and that'll be finished next year. So we will have many more of these similar machines to this one. Floor elements look like this, and as you can see, we build only in timber. So that is important for us because it's easy to work with. It has a low weight, and it's of course a very sustainable material as well. But here you can see how we prefabricate with all the piping, insulation, and electrical installations and stuff like that in the floor element already here from factory. Here is one production line with not yet being automated, but it's on its way, as I said. But these guys, they attach boards, plywood boards, and they have some really nice equipment to help them, and they are super fast. I can assure you that they put on these boards and the screws on this element, which is I think 3 × 9 meters. They do it in 10 minutes. So it's quite impressive. So we need to have some really good machines to compete with these guys. We pre-assemble elements also on a side line to be able to put into the floor elements to keep the line moving fast. And we put the flooring on already when it's flat elements. And then we marry together the walls that we have produced and the floor and ceiling elements that we have produced. Then we marry them together into volumetric elements. And then we continue through the factory to complete the volumetric elements into almost completely finished rooms. So in order to do that in a smart way, we prepare carts with all the components needed for the bathrooms. Again, optimized for building identical bathrooms over and over and over again. And we have all the cabinets for the kitchen and for the whole apartment. IKEA cabinets, of course, pre-assembled and then installed into the volumetric elements. As you can see here, these are for the kitchen. And again, we can optimize to do that in a smart way. So that is done at the same workstation through the factory every time. And then we can optimize even the tool carts to do. We have only the tools and components needed to do those tasks. And again, bringing out cost, bringing out time, do it in a efficient way. Yep, as you can see, completing the kitchen with everything, and completing the hallway with the cabinets and the coat hangers and the painted walls, painted ceilings, the hardwood floor is there. So basically 85% of all work is done in the factory, and then the building site is mainly a final assembly station, you could say. And we can do that because we can control the production process. And then we ship the modules to the sites, and this is a good day to assemble modules. It's not always like that in Sweden, I can assure you. But this was a good day. This is a Monday morning, and this is the Thursday afternoon. So after 3-4 days, we have a complete building up with the roof on and it's sealed for weather. And then a couple of more months, it's completed with facade and balconies, and the roof is complete, and so on. All the connections are done. So that's sort of the production process. How are we on time, Daniel?
So we still have 20 minutes left, but that includes the Q&A. So
Yeah.
I think you have another 5 minutes for a lecture, and then we can do Q&A.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So what we do it on a repetitive basis. Then it's a good move, of course, to understand. We have understood our customers, we think, but we also want feedback from them in order to improve even better, to make better products and make even better housing areas and so on. So we do customer surveys after every project. We get a lot of feedback that we can use for improvements. And the amazing thing is that we have very, very satisfied customers. So we actually just a couple of weeks ago got the result from the National Customer Investigation, which is a standardized investigation done with all housing developers, housing companies actually. So we have been in the top three ranked housing companies for the last 5 years, and 3 times on top actually. And this year, or 2020, we scored as the most satisfied customers in the housing industry in Sweden again, which I think, I'm not saying this only to brag, but a little, of course, but I think it's also very interesting because we have the most standardized offering on the market. We have the same floor plans in every project. We have, of course, we can do configurations of our buildings, but they look pretty much this, or they are very similar. So it's a very standardized offering, but yet we had the most satisfied customers on the housing market. I think it's a pretty interesting combination. So very super standardized offering, and yet you could sort of think that, oh, very extremely customized project would be the most appreciated by the customers, but actually not. Interesting, I think. That's something for you to digest maybe in the class. We use our relationship with IKEA, so we sell our homes at IKEA stores in a special sort of sales events. Also very standardized sales event, very efficient, but also a little twist on it. So we sell to fixed prices, and we have a lottery to determine the order in which you can choose what apartment you like and so on. So that's also a little making us a little special, and we get some PR from that as well, and it's efficient for us. To summarize, we have built around 14,000 homes since the start. We build around 1,200 per year. It will increase, I think, quite soon when we get up on speed in the UK. We are 400 plus employees, where half of it, or a little more than half, are in the module factory here in Sweden. We are in 4 countries, as I said, and our aim is to keep growing the concept. Just to wrap this up, is that we also pay a lot of attention to sustainability. We have, since a couple of years back, put solar panels on all our multifamily projects. This could be done through our collaboration with IKEA, which has been super successful. So now we have decided to move to a very bold decision. So we will do everything we can to be climate neutral by 2035. And by being climate neutral, we mean our whole supply chain, all the way back to our suppliers and so on. So this is a super challenge, but that's something we need to do, and we want to do it. And the roadmap looks like this. So cutting our reductions with 1/3 every 5 years until the goal is achieved in 2035. So this is something that we put a lot of focus on, not least in terms of research and development. So I think that's all. Here are some links. If you're interested, I can send it separately to you, Daniel, with some YouTube video and some podcast where I say basically the same things as I have done now, maybe. But that's what I had prepared for you. So thanks a lot for listening, and now I'm all yours to answer questions.